Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Taekcast. My name is Davis Mattek. I am joined today by one master, Kevin Cole, from Unexpected Points. Get it? It's like expected points, but unexpected points, and it works, Kevin, both ways because it's both related to football and you are making points. There are talking points. It's kind of got everything you need in a pun name for a Substack. How are you doing on this? Well, you don't live somewhere frigid. There is no snow on the ground where you are, correct?
No, there's no snow, but I'm in the greater Washington, D.C. area now. So it's cold, but it tops out or bottoms out, I should say, with highs probably in the 30s. For me, if you don't get a high above freezing for any sustained period of the day, like an hour or at least a few hours, midday, sun out a little bit, topping out in the mid to high 30s. If you don't get that for a sustained period of time, then that's just too cold for me. So here I can still function okay. We go a couple of years sometimes without snow. So
All right. Well, I currently I'm battling through it. It's dark at 4:30. There's snow everywhere. My dogs, they want to go outside and I'm like, "Please, can we not? It's so cold. I got to get bundled up every time I take them out." So there's nothing better left to do than argue about NFL awards. That is what we are going to be doing here on the show today. We are going to discuss for sure we're going to do MVP. For sure we're going to do offensive rookie of the year. We will see where that leaves us in the end. So let's just start here with MVP. I will let you do your spiel first before I give my opinions. Kevin, who do you think? I'll answer this two ways. One, who do you think will win NFL MVP? And two, who do you think should win NFL MVP?
well, yeah, I mean, when it comes to the naming of unexpected points, I guess if you know my inclinations, it's
Right.
very expected points, extremely expected points when it comes to something like this, because I mean, I know we don't want to just make it a quarterback award. It's not a quarterback award, blah, blah, blah. Um, but I feel like if you take the V and MVP seriously at all, then that's kind of what it has to be. And I also think as part of a larger discussion, the fact that we exclude wide receivers or offensive linemen, tackles, something like that, who are clearly more valuable by the NFL standards and what they spend on them in trades and cap and kind of just I think generally if you look at like on off splits or things like that, that's a whole nother discussion though. Like Tyreek Hill, in my opinion, in previous years, or there was someone who was going to get some love. Maybe he could have gotten some MVP loves in previous years. So anyway, so the discussion this year is going to be between quarterbacks and Saquon Barkley. I mean, as recently as maybe a week ago, I would have said I was leaning Lamar Jackson. Although I've also stated that this year, I think because Josh Allen has a single second team All Pro to his name, while being, in my opinion, clearly the second best quarterback in the NFL for the entire 5-year stretch from 2020 until what will be through the end of this season, seems a little bit light. So I would have leaned his direction either way. And I think now with win-loss record, and with him being pretty much just as efficient as Lamar this season after losing Stephon Diggs, he has a lot of things combining together for him, narrative-wise, for him to win the award. Now, his implied odds, I think, are something like 65-70% right now or something like that. And I don't know. I feel like it should almost be higher. But if Saquon hits that rushing total for the entire season and breaks the record, that's really going to be, I mean, as silly as it sounds, breaking it in it with an extra game in the season could be the defining
No,
thing
but
this year.
breaking the record, I think we really should not overstate how much in these narrative-based awards breaking a record matters. Obviously, the greatest example of this in modern memory is the Russell Westbrook triple-double season. I believe feels like yesterday to me. I believe it was 2017, where it was between Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kawhi Leonard to win NBA MVP. The Oklahoma City Thunder finished with 47 wins, I want to say. They were the 5th seed that year, but Russell Westbrook won NBA MVP, not because he was the most valuable player, which you could not have ascribed to in any of the advanced data at all, but because he broke a record. It was the first triple-double that anyone has averaged since Oscar Robertson. Now, we might get this happening again. We have an MVP averaging a triple-double in the NBA right now, but I agree with you. Now, I think maybe someone would be ready to say, you can't be an RBs, don't matter, bro, and then say it doesn't really matter here. I'm actually, Kevin, I think I'm fine with Saquon Barkley winning MVP of the season. I don't think that this isn't even the best that Allen has played. I mean, maybe it is the best. I don't have his career numbers pulled up. I'm looking at I just have Ben Baldwin's EPA per play up stuff right now. He's fine. He's very good. And these, I mean, as you would expect, the Bills been awesome. He's been awesome. In my memory, there's been better stretches of Josh Allen play where he's been more of like kind of like a force of nature and bent games to his will, more or less. Allen should win it. If I had a vote, I would vote for Allen. But I'm okay with Barkley winning it. Is he the most valuable player? Of course he's not. But for what the award serves, which is kind of like the story of the season, I think I'm fine with it. I really think I'm okay with it.
Okay. Well, let me say what I'm probably not fine with it. Although, hey, I'm not going to lose any sleep over whoever happens to win this award. Is that at least if we go back to the last running back winner, and maybe you could say in some ways this is
Peterson, right?
Adrian Peterson, 2014, scraped into the playoffs. Let's remember this was a team with the Christian Ponder at quarterback. Not a lot of talent anywhere else on the team. There was a lot to put on Peterson for truly being someone who carried the team. When I calculated some value type of numbers based upon grouping, I cluster together all these different types of players and look at on-off splits and do some nerd shit and try to come up with what some values may be. I mean, Adrian Peterson's season really was that special. I mean, Barkley's had a bunch of long runs this year, but he still hasn't quite been on the same level as what we have for what Peterson did. And yet, if you look around at the rest of the Eagles team, I mean, they have a top 5 offensive line probably in run blocking. They have Jalen Hurts, who, it's funny, like in a game like what happened this last weekend, Barkley, and I know EPA is a little bit funky when dealing with rushing plays because you can generate so much on like conversions, and the volume is kind of bad if they're a little bit negative for each one of the volume. But just to state it, runs from Jalen Hurts last week gained something like 3 expected points versus half an expected point from Saquon Barkley. So it's just like there are other guys on the team. You have that. You have AJ Brown. You have this offensive line. You have a lot of guys, and now you have the defense playing particularly well, which I think has really been the difference between the team last
the
year
exciting
and this year.
whites. The exciting whites. I mean, it's my favorite.
Exactly.
It's my favorite thing. My favorite team level meme I've seen is Reed Blankenship and Cooper DeJean wearing the exciting whites t-shirts. Absolutely love it.
Like if you had an Adrian Peterson type of year where you could really build that narrative better for them being the reason of making the playoffs, and you had a down year amongst quarterbacks like maybe we saw last year. Last year we had kind of a down year amongst quarterbacks, but we didn't have that running back who really popped up there. I just don't think Saquon's even going to look that good in my numbers because he's okay when it comes to receiving value, but he's not extremely strong. And he's been pretty good when it comes to rushing value, but I'm not even sure he's been better than many seasons of rushing value that we've seen recently. I think Jonathan Taylor had a really good rushing season a few years ago with a lot of big plays that popped pretty well.
There was definitely Jonathan Taylor MVP discourse for at least a week at some
point.
But
this is pretty hyped. This is pretty hyped combined with the fact that the Eagles have such an easy schedule. And if you look at what they're going to do for the rest of the season, they have the easiest schedule in the NFL for the rest of the season. They're going to play the Carolina Panthers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who according to my numbers are not that great. So just take that with whatever grain of salt you want. The Commanders, the Cowboys, and the Giants. Okay, like he is going to get a ton of yards. They're possibly going to win all those games. They're possibly then going to win the NFC. So I think all of these factors are going to come in and give it to him. Where I just don't like it because I feel like Allen deserves an award. And I agree with you. This is not the best Josh Allen season. He probably had a better season in 2020, maybe even 2021 versus these sorts of numbers. But Patrick Mahomes is not having a great season. Aaron Rodgers is not having a great season. Lamar Jackson's having a pretty good season.
That's a bit of an understatement for old Patsy.
Aaron Rodgers was a guy that he was second to in All-Pro voting in 2021, I believe. So, or maybe it was 2020, but so he's had these different things before where guys have blocked his way. There's no one really there I think he deserves it for what he's had for the last few years. So it would be a little disheartening for him. And I do think he's been unlucky when it comes to facing the Chiefs in the playoffs a bunch of times too, where they had really great seasons and even good offensive performances in some of those games. So for all those reasons, I would lean Josh Allen, but if things really flip up at the end of the season, I could go anyway, but I'm never going to go Barkley. The question will be, how does rank ordering affect
the voting
chances of a running back winning the award?
winning.
I think it makes it less likely for a running back to win the award because they'll say, well, you know what? I'll put him as second. I'll put him
Saquon second.
as second. And then that will take away the all or nothingness. And that would have been the way for maybe Saquon to get there. If the quarterback votes would have gotten split up for first place, and then Saquon would have taken the rest of them. So I think it's a little bit harder, but I'm not certain.
No, I think that would be how that would be how I would imagine it, because you're right. Like, just the way I'm thinking of, like, oh, how would I vote it? I would basically be between Lamar and Josh. I mean, weirdly, I actually think Lamar has mostly played better than Josh has.
Well, I would have said Lamar a week ago, but another loss, everything else that's happening, it's a little bit harder. So yeah,
another loss that was like not particularly competitive. It was also only the second time in his career.
He wasn't great, or at least it wasn't great by the numbers the last couple of weeks.
Second time in his career ever that he's lost to an NFC team, which I just think is like a funny little Lamar stat. I mean, there was a segment this year where it was the best that Lamar had ever been in terms of EPA added. And heading into yesterday, Lamar had been, he was the literal leading passer in the National Football League, which is not something you would have ever predicted.
He has an extra game over a lot of people, but yeah.
Well, I mean, we only have one more round of bye weeks left with the week.
I know. I think that's it. I think the Ravens come.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, still, the idea that this guy that we all thought was going to be a great running quarterback would limit turnovers and stuff, but he'd never throw for 4,500 yards. I mean, he's on pace to do it. He's on pace to do it in a season where, like, Mark Andrews hasn't been able to play full time. I mean, I think. I wonder what you think about this. Are Lamar's bad games so aesthetically unpleasing? Like, when Lamar has a bad game, there's something about it that's just very objectionable, where, like, I don't know. It's his bad games seem worse. And I think this is true of Jalen Hurts too. A lot of people have this negative opinion of Jalen Hurts because when things go bad for the Eagles, they go so bad. It's just like Jalen Hurts getting sacked, a running back gaining no yards, and Jalen Hurts throwing it away on third down, and then them punting. Like, the way, I also wonder if this is playing into the Barkley thing, the way they ended last season, it was so dire, like getting blown out at home by like a dead on their feet Buccaneers team. No disrespect to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but like, they were never winning a Super Bowl, obviously. And now it's like, the Eagles offense doesn't look that great. Like, say, AJ Brown didn't even get a target in the second half. It feels like it only ever looks good when AJ Brown is securing a 40-yard pass or Saquon Barkley's ripping off a 70-yard run. But anyway, long circuitous point to, I think Lamar's bad games, there's something about them that is like extra bad to the mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the rushing quarterback angle of it, where, I mean, let's face it, you mentioned that he has some pretty good counting stats this year, but generally when they lose a game, they're not just going to open the floodgates when it comes to attempts. I mean, it's something to be like, think about the Super Bowl comeback for the Patriots against the Falcons. Sorry, Falcons fans, to bring this up again. But, you look at the numbers, and people are talking about this historic performance by Brady. I think he threw the ball like 60 times or something like that. So even when you're losing, you have a chance at some point in time to build up a bunch of counting stat types of numbers that can come through.
That's a very good point.
That are probably not going to happen as much with Lamar, because he's also going to scramble a lot too when he goes back in those desperation types of situations. And for some reason, a third down conversion via scramble seems like kind of like, oh, the defense made a mistake, it's a little whatever, versus a completion.
Well, certainly when Patrick Mahomes does it. Yeah. Every Patrick Mahomes third down rush, I've been like, well, someone. Really
sorry for the tangent here, but I have to say, the Caleb Williams little fake on the sideline, and then he got hit, and talking about the defender. That was almost like teaching tape for people that complain about Patrick Mahomes to be like, see, it's not that easy. Yeah, not everyone can just put on the brakes and then get a run, because that's kind of what he was going to try to do. He was going to try to put on the brakes, let the guy fly
that's
by him.
exactly what he did. He tried to
But it's
do
not
the
that
Mahomes
easy.
thing.
People pretend like anyone can do it.
very
Oh, all
hard.
you got to do is pretend like you're going to go out of bounds. It's like, no, like Mahomes has got that dad bod, but he's quite nimble. He's quite nimble and quick feet for doing those types of moves. So anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. When reality is, it's kind of more about the quarterback to get a scramble touchdown, because there's no receivers that are involved in the play. It could be a blown, offensive line sort of play. So I don't know. I think that is part of the reason, is that it just doesn't look and feel the same, especially if you're not so hyper focused on, EPA type of stats versus some of these other types of measures that are just going to go by counting stats.
Yeah. And I mean, Lamar and Josh are sort of in a group of their own in terms of adjusted EPA per play. Actually closer than you think. I mean, I guess we should probably mention the name of the man who is on the team that is currently favored to win the Super Bowl, is locked in to a first round bye. I mean, I feel like if Jared Goff wasn't Jared Goff, if he was someone else, if he was someone who we didn't have a decade of very clear opinions about, I kind of feel like the nerds would be rallying to Jared Goff. We'd be like, look at this, man. Doesn't matter how it looks. Doesn't matter the aesthetics. Jared Goff has been, if not the most valuable, one of the 3 to 5 most valuable. If you never watched a game and you didn't know anything about Ben Johnson, and if you only got to watch the dots, Kevin, the dots were all you got to see for football, could you make a case that Jared Goff is the NFL MVP?
I mean, you probably could. I mean, I would say that his season this year is probably most similar to Aaron Rodgers's back-to-back MVP seasons, in that it's kind of a lower volume type of passing attack. Now with the Lions, it's because they're running the ball a little bit more. Aaron Rodgers just kind of, also they slightly ran the ball more, but he kind of just runs a very slow offense. A short A dot, very short A dot. And then lots of run after the catch. I mean, Jared Goff is leading the NFL in yards per attempt, but then he's 8th in total yards this season because of the fact that he just does not have the volume of other guys. I mean, Joe Burrow has thrown the ball 106 times more than Jared Goff this season, which is a tremendous number when we're talking about, Jared Goff's thrown the ball 340 times. You add another 100 and something to that. That's like a few games worth of reps for him, more than a few games worth of reps for him. So I think he doesn't have the volume, but if you want to go straight efficiency, maybe you could get there. The problem is when I do some adjusted types of numbers and I downweight guys based upon run after the catch, and he's off the charts as far as the value that he's getting from Yak, from his receivers. So it's not just guys down the field turning long passes into touchdowns, but it's guys like kind of turning short passes into longer passes. And that's something that's going to hurt him a bit.
The volume case, I think, is why. I mean, then you get into the intricacies of the word. What does valuable mean? What would the Lions record be with Gardner Minshew? I don't know. Still pretty good, I think. Probably not as good, but still probably pretty good, right? And They're also, I don't know if you've found yourself in your darkest moments thinking about who is going to win the championship this year, who's going to win the Super Bowl, and I'm just like, the confetti is gonna have to be falling off the roof before I believe that the Lions are gonna win it. I mean, one, like, just historical Detroit Lions always find a way to snatch victory, or snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And then also, like, I just have seen what happens when Jared Goff gets put in. It's not fair to say blitzing, because actually, if you look at the data, he's all right against the blitz, mostly because his coaches have been like, this is what you do when they blitz you. You get the ball over here. You point and you shoot. Jared Goff is never making the play that is required, which is like kind of what you need in a lot of those games. So yeah, I mean, Jared Goff can't win MVP. Jared Goff, I think even if the Lions were literally undefeated, I still don't think. Would he win MVP if they went 17-0?
I mean, it might be close. I mean, just to give you another measure, now this is mostly the Yak figure, but there's other things that go into this, like fumble recovery luck and other. But if you look at QBR, which is ESPN's measure, and again, they have an adjustment. They give a quarterback more credit for for stuff that goes through the air versus Yak. I mean, they have Jared Goff 16th ranked in QBR this season.
that
Despite
is
the
wrong.
fact,
So
yeah,
that
no,
is
I agree
wrong.
that that's wrong. I agree that that's wrong, but I just don't like it's somewhere. The truth lies somewhere in between these two measures, and I think it's probably just too far of a bridge to get Goff there, where it kind of matches the eye test with what you're seeing with some of these advanced metrics. I don't think anyone is bowing down to Goff. I will say I think they have a really good chance of going to and winning the Super Bowl. I think that's been a question on some people's minds of can they win a Super Bowl with him? I mean,
Definitely.
they're gonna be at home, they're gonna have a bye, and the Super Bowl is gonna be in a dome. They've almost all played like dome or good
One
weather
outdoor
games
game.
this year. So
One
that's
outdoor
really
game the
helped them a
whole
lot.
year. One.
So sure. Why not? I mean, a lot worse quarterbacks than Jared Goff have won under more difficult routes to getting to the championship in a year where Kansas City, I guess, was compromised. I don't know. That maybe they'll turn things around. I did
No.
not.
The Kansas City stinks, man. It's gone beyond. It's gone beyond. Oh, they'll get healthy. It's like there is something fundamentally broken and wrong with the way this team plays on offense. I
Yeah,
don't
so
know what
Kansas
it
City's
is.
not good. San Francisco, kind of
No,
the best team in the NFC for a while, is probably not even going to make the playoffs at all. So you have the Eagles, and I don't know, are the Packers that good? Maybe it'd be a little bit tougher if they're on the road, but I guess they have a chance of doing something. And then you have the NFC West, which is just a bunch of, there's no serious contenders in that division without the 49ers doing anything.
no. I think the only serious teams are the Detroit Lions, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Buffalo Bills, and the Ravens. Now, the unspoken thing there is the Chiefs may at some point become serious. They may discover something. Maybe Kelsey. So let's say they have the division wrapped up and the Bills have the 1 seed, so it just doesn't matter. Kelsey doesn't play week 17 or week 18, so he gets 2 weeks off. Maybe the deal with Kelsey is he has now entered into his Zach Ertz era of playing, where Pat Crane actually just looked this up on ADP chasing. Kelsey is both top 5 in open score and bottom 5 in yak score. So he catches it and he falls down. And like that is a big element that's missing from the offense. Now maybe Hollywood Brown comes back and that adds something, him playing instead of Justin Watson. Hopkins learns the offense a little bit more. Xavier Worthy, maybe the Chiefs apply for a special exemption to get the field a yard and a half wider in the playoffs or something. I don't know.
They should build a special practice field for him, which is a little bit more narrow than the actual field. So he thinks, so he's conditioned to think that it's more narrow. So when he would just be stepping out of bounds, it's actually still in play for the actual football field.
Yeah, I actually have not talked ball with you in a while. What is your sort of assignation with the Chiefs? Is it losing Bieniemy was a bigger deal? The wide receivers can't get out because it's shows up in the numbers too. Like Mahomes is much closer to an above average quarterback instead of an otherworldly alien that cannot be contained by mere mortals. What's your diagnosis?
Yeah, I think it's mostly that yak cheat code is kind of compromised now with what they're doing. And you had someone with Mahomes who could get that ball out very quickly, the arm angles, and get pretty good placement and just execution in a very very solid manner to get
No,
free
the
yards.
execution is terrible.
Well, okay,
Terrible.
I'm talking about in previous years where you'd be
Yeah.
able to do that and get a lot of freebies on top of kind of allowing his receivers to make plays in certain other aspects. So yeah, I think that's gone. I think Kelsey is slightly washed. I mean, the thing you want how I tell beyond the numbers, if you watch Kelsey get up off of the ground, that's the number one. That's number one. He looks like it looks like me getting up. It's like me getting up nowadays. Like he looks slightly in pain whenever he has to get up off of the ground. Like he could just be like, give me a moment. I'm just going to hang out down here. He's got the hand up waiting for someone to help pull him off of the ground. So yeah, I think that's a problem. And I think the protection is a bit of a problem. Like he needs some sort of baseline protection.
I've never seen this before. This guy, Wanya Morris, against the Raiders. I at the NFL level, I never remember a one-on-one left tackle against the right end, where the left tackle doesn't even get a hand on him, where basically it was as if, and I think Chason, I believe, was the rusher against the Raiders. He basically just got a free release despite Wanya Morris still being on him. And I am not a big offensive line guy. I know that you've been doing some podcasts with our old friend Frisco Josh, and he's been doing offensive lines. Where does he have the Chiefs' offensive line? He's got to have them as one of the 10 worst units in the NFL, probably.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where he has. That would be an interesting question to pose to him when I talk to him tomorrow, because sometimes I think the calibration is a bit off when you get these offensive line rankings, because if you're just looking at win rate or something like that, well, certain
Right.
wins are more important than others. And I do think there's something unique with the Chiefs where they had, when it came to someone like a Mitchell Schwartz or others, guys who weren't really that valued in other places, but they were pretty good with their feet, just getting outside and creating a little bit more of a push to the outside. Because Mahomes takes those deep drops, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if he takes a deep drop and you don't at least you don't quickly get out. I mean, there's a reason why, they're getting the illegal formation calls over and because they're just trying to get out as quickly as possible and push them out slightly further. And then once Mahomes has some space, he can work around in there. But it's just, they just don't have a guys who can even get the hand on them in that way. So that ends up being a bigger loss than it would be. Maybe some people wouldn't even consider some of these to be much of a loss because they're just going so far, because Mahomes is dropping so far deep on some of these plays.
He is. And I mean, he sticks in the pocket forever and tries to make something happen. And, maybe he does. Not even maybe. He definitely does not have the connection with Hopkins and Worthy that he's had with, even Noah Gray and Kelsey. So like he's sitting there waiting for Xavier Worthy to do the thing he wants him to do, and he can't do it. The only dusty guy they've been able to bring in who does seem to have that connection is Juju, which is like so funny. Juju Smith-Schuster got cut from a team with the worst wide receivers in football and is currently starting for a Super Bowl contender. I mean, just what a crazy sport it is. Where
Think about him and Hopkins and Kelsey. We're talking about guys who are averaging like 4 or 5 years outside of their best season.
They're also slow. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Hunt, Pirine, Kelsey, they're just everyone but Worthy and Pacheco is just so slow. They're so slow. So I guess maybe it's not a mystery at all. It's just this is a team that cannot generate explosives anymore. And so if your margin of error is, well, you just have to have a bunch of 12-pay drives where you convert third downs. And the Chiefs are still the best third down converting team in the NFL, which you obviously would never think given the tenor of the conversation around them. If you just have to continually convert third downs, that is playing a dangerous game.
I'd have to look at the numbers this year, but I remember one of the big things last offseason where Mahomes really turned the dial up. I mean, he got more efficient passing the ball too, but he just started scrambling a lot. He just started scrambling more and turning that dial up a lot. And it makes sense that if you're going to play with that, you wouldn't want to do it until it's really necessary in the playoffs versus taking those extra hits during the regular season. So, I guess that's another area where he may try to step that up quite a bit in the playoffs.
Yes, I hope so. That would be my rooting interest. To bring it back to MVP, I'm glad that the Chiefs. I'm not glad that they lost the game, but I'm glad for MVP discourse that we did not have to try and talk ourselves into Mahomes as MVP just because the Chiefs blocked a kick against the Broncos. Them winning that game against the Bills would have been unjust. They certainly would not have deserved it. I wonder if Lamar can play well enough right now. So right now, I just have the DraftKings odds up instead of like an odds board. Josh Allen is minus 225. Lamar is 9-1. The Ravens go at the Giants, home to the Steelers, at the Texans, and then home to the Browns. If they go undefeated in those games, and he's got one crazy, like that Steelers game, that would be the really interesting, because the Steelers always own Lamar for whatever reason. He gets 4 touchdowns in that game or something. I could see the tenor of the conversation shifting from Allen to Lamar. I mean, I think the odds are about right. The interesting thing is who finishes second, I guess. Would it be Barkley or would it be Lamar?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think if there's anyone, Lamar would be potentially someone to bet on at this point for exactly like you're saying, the schedule coming up, the fact that he could get at least a little bit of redemption, I guess, against the Steelers, and the people think the Steelers are good and they're not. So like beating them will give maybe if he really has an impressive performance, that will register more so. Um, I don't know if winning last year hurts him. I don't think it really has had much an effect over the years. I mean, Brett Favre won 3 straight MVPs. Peyton Manning won back-to-back MVPs multiple times. So I don't think that really hurts him. But I do think it would be a little bit out of proportion if he had 3 MVPs to Mahomes' 2 to Josh Allen's 0 after all this period of time. But hey, he could deserve it this
He
season.
could.
This season.
He could.
I don't think he
I
deserved
mean,
it last season. That was my whole problem. But yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I guess also maybe I do sort of dislike the Buffalo Bills. I don't, but it's just there's that rivalry thing. The team I really hate is the Bengals, actually, as a
I
Chiefs
used to
fan.
hate the Bengals, but now I kind of feel sad that Burrow's playing well and they're losing all the time. Whereas before, it was like Joe Burrow has this special it thing, and when he wasn't playing that well, and they would win, that annoyed me. So I'm almost kind of, I flip around on everyone. Bengals were my most hated team, probably only because they're just overrated by their fans. Is basically what it means, but hated to me. But now I kind of feel a little sorry for him, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, well, I feel sorry for them that none of them are going to get paid and that they're going to waste. It's like generational to have Burrow and Chase get to play together in college, then get to play together in the NFL, and the owners are like, yeah, that seems fine. Keep the money coming in. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
I don't know. It is a bit of a bummer. Actually, before we do offensive rookie of the year, I wanna take your temperature on Mr. Purdy and Shanahan and because you were always Jimmy Garoppolo is actually better than you think, and it's not all just Kyle and so on and so forth. Just a very bizarre year for the 49ers. Where are you at with Purdy's pending $260 million contract?
I don't know if I'm in that much of a different space than I was before. I mean, he's an interesting character in some ways, similar to what happened with Mahomes this year, where yeah, you could have discounted him pretty heavily what he did in the past based upon yak over expectation and things like that. And if you want to say that scheme or receivers or whatever, that basically just went away this year, other than a little bit of a stretch during the middle of the season where he started to gain some of that back. So it's interesting, and that's really affected the perception maybe of some people of Purdy, but I don't know if it's actually been affected that much, because by the unadjusted types of numbers, he's maybe slightly worse this year. But there's just really the pre-adjustment numbers where he's not getting the freebies that he was before in the past. So I guess it hasn't changed my opinion of him that much. I still think he's worth an extension, whatever that extension may be. I don't think he's any worse than, a Jared Goff or someone like that for sure when it comes to that type of extension. So I'm fine with it. I do think it's difficult when a team crumbles kind of in the way that we're seeing now. But I think that the 49ers also haven't made a lot of tough choices over the years as far as not re-signing guys, whether it's Debo or Ayuk or Christian McCaffrey or Trent Williams, or they have pretty much a top heavy team, and now they're going to have to figure out what to do when they lose a few of those superstars. They don't have the depth to really build into it. They traded away a lot of picks too. I think we're starting to see the effects of that also, not having that depth.
Well, Debo, I think, is not going to be on the team next year. I think
Agree, but you probably could have traded him at some point and gotten a pick and not
probably
resigned and not extended him.
well,
right?
but you could have won a Super Bowl with him. So
no, I agree. Or Ayuk, right?
6-1.
You could have just done it with Ayuk this offseason.
Yeah, I probably would have traded Ayuk, but I'm also a noted Ayuk hater. Probably should have.
I'm not that high on Ayuk either. It's kind of weird.
In retrospect, trading the efficiency yak monster who projects to age insanely poorly, probably would have been a good idea.
He's
Probably
like
a
a
good
running
idea.
back. It's basically he is like a
Yeah,
running back. He just runs out of you're washed, by the time you're in your late 20s. So
it's crazy to see how bad he's been this year. Yeah, I'm fascinated by what the 49ers do because they've never had a quarterback earn that percentage of the salary cap that Purdy would command. Jimmy got a big contract, but not a
yeah, he
not
got a
a
big
not a
contract. They front loaded it a lot where they had like dog shit
yeah.
on the rest of the roster, so they didn't have to worry about it as much. But I think officially he was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL when he signed that contract. But you're right. We've kind of taken a step up as far as just generally how much quarterbacks are making now.
And I was a Purdy hater for a long time. I've mostly been converted. Actually, one more before offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Actually maybe two more. What do the Panthers do? What do the Panthers do with Bryce Young? What's your answer? You run it back, having the quarterback on the rookie deal is so valuable. Canales is the quarterback whisperer, or do you just say, look, it was a nice, maybe we trade him for a pick, maybe we get a 3rd round pick for him, but we sign ourselves up for Shadur Sanders or whatever.
Yeah, I think you say, will anyone trade for this guy? And if you could get something of substance, then maybe you consider it. And then other than that, in some ways, the fact that the offense has been average-ish since he's returned, slightly worse than average since he returned, you could say, well, we're paying this guy. Let me see here. His cap hit's going to be 10 million next year, 12 million the year after that. A lot of that is guaranteed. I think all of it is guaranteed, but because it's bonuses that are also part of that. And you just say to yourself, well, it's not bad backup money, right? He's like our backup basically now, and we try to get something better going forward if we can. The problem is you can't always, control your own destiny when it comes to those sorts of things. But I would definitely just be looking to upgrade. I'd be looking to trade if I could get, a 2nd round pick or something like that from somebody. Otherwise, I would say, okay, we got a little bit of a more expensive backup going forward with this guaranteed money that's still left on his contract.
I based on the way
you're in on Bryce.
So based on the way I
You've been
view
talking to Josh
football,
Norris. Josh Norris is like this guy's biggest defender. He loves this guy.
yeah, he does. I mean, he's a Panthers fan, so much like me, you shouldn't ever really take anything I say about the Chiefs, the Bills, or the Bengals that seriously because there's a filter of.
It's good. It's good that you recognize that. It's good because there's a problem. There's a problem with fan like analysts of a particular team is that if they say something absolutely fucking ridiculous, they'll get enough support from the fan base that they can like discount the other people yelling at them, and so they're getting bad feedback. But go ahead.
No, yeah. I hate the Bills a little bit. I hate the Bengals a little bit, and honestly, I kind of hate the Chiefs a little bit too. But that's where it comes from. So the deal with Bryce, and I'm so bad at this.
I haven't been watching a lot of Panthers. I'll put that caveat out there. Although that should just be a caveat for everything. I don't know if he looks good or not.
Someone in the football media made this point, and I'm not going to credit them, and I apologize if this was you making the point. Corain told me to listen to this podcast, and I did. Basically making the point. You remember when Tua got his concussion and went on the IR, there was this kind of tenor of like, oh, the Dolphins should trade for Bryce Young. And this person was making the point that Bryce is not really a point and click guy. You don't really want to take a guy with like accuracy issues and tippy toes and like wants to bail out of the pocket. You don't want to turn that guy into a point and click guy. You'd much rather turn.
I mean, people were comparing him to Mahomes for a reason, but he's like Mahomes who can't do Mahomes things. That's a problem. Whereas Tua is not trying to do Mahomes things. He's not trying to do Mahomes things. Yeah.
So basically, I think you can kind of build around that. Not that you want to build a team around Bryce Young, but don't. I am very low on this quarterback class that's coming in. So like restarting the cycle with Cam Ward or Carson Beck or Shadur Sanders or Quinn Ewers doesn't seem that appealing to me. Maybe Shadur. Shadur's a very weird prospect. Brett Coleman just had a great tweet about this the other day. You guys, I mean, he's a huge YouTuber, so you probably don't need me to tell you to go check him out. But basically just a very weird prospect. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Run it back another year. Bring Thielen back. Let Lee get 130 targets. Maybe there's something there. you got Tommy Tremble and Jatavian Sanders. They look okay. You got Jonathan Brooks. Like maybe you're able to run some kind of weird pistol, kind of like what the Commanders are doing. You could run a very Commanders-y style offense with him and like get Bryce out of the pocket a lot. Kind of like actually Kyler's best years have been with a lot of like weird personnel and getting out of the pocket. Like Kyler's best set this year is like in 13 personnel. Anyway, long way of saying I think you try and run it back. I think you try and run it back.
I mean, I would probably disagree. Although I'm looking back on past draft classes at quarterback to see, has there been a draft class that was trying to remember back to what we were thinking at the time that was seen as being weak that had hits, and that, you know, there kind of hasn't been really. Like there hasn't been. These guys kind of all just stink. Maybe like Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco went, you know, and they were 3 and 18 picks. Flacco came out of nowhere and he ended up being okay. That's an idea of it, like an okay draft class, I guess. But most of these draft classes that were seen as being pretty weak, all the guys stunk. So it's not great. I don't know. I would still take a shot at somebody who cares, right? If you miss, I just don't think it's a big deal if you miss on a first round quarterback, just like it's not a big deal if you miss on a first round whoever. These guys, they're like, just the Commanders just cut their first round pick from last year, right? Just recently. It's like, it's not a big deal if you miss on a first round pick.
I mean, you'd like to hit on your first round picks.
Well, clearly. I'm just saying we shouldn't view the quarterback so differently.
So differently.
You draft a quarterback at 15 and everyone's like, this guy's the future for the next 15 years,
right.
you know?
No,
you draft a guard at
a
15 and no one even knows what their name is, you know? And the fan base.
It's so, dude, that's so true. Like, we drafted this transcendent slot. No one knows. People know.
No, but don't anoint these guys. You don't draft a guy in the middle of the first round and then you're like, oh, this guy's going to be our franchise. I mean, you don't even do that unless it's the number one pick. And even if it's the number one pick, we've seen that fails quite often. But it's especially funny to me if someone's in the middle of the first round or, you know, outside of the top 5 and people are like, okay, we got that franchise quarterback taken care of now for the next 20 years. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, that'll never change though, so we shouldn't harp on it. That's just the way media and all this stuff works.
I say draft more. I'm fine with drafting more. Everyone was upset about so many quarterbacks going this year. Like, who cares? You know, like, just take them, see what happens.
Well, and laughing all the way to the bank, the Denver Broncos, and maybe the Atlanta Falcons too. Maybe the Atlanta Falcons. There's a very unoriginal aggregated opinion style thing going around, and I tweeted this today too, and I shouldn't do these things, but basically, you know, every Huskies wide receiver is stunk. DeBoer is like kind of doing okay at Alabama, not great, not terrible either. And then Ryan Grubb, I think there's some things I would change if I was calling plays for Seattle. I mean, not that I know everything, but not lighting the world on fire in Seattle. Maybe it was all Michael Penix. Maybe it was all Michael Penix Jr., baby. Turns out.
Maybe. I mean, the thing for me is the Kirk Cousins thing, right? So my whole thing when they drafted Penix, the reason I was not negative on it was that it was my, you know, very unscientific opinion that I was going to say, okay, if we fast forward a year from now, there's a 50-50 chance the Falcons fan base is like, oh my God, I can't believe we have Kirk Cousins. We need to upgrade a quarterback. So, hey, you already got your quarterback on the roster to upgrade. And I feel like things are turning that way. He has a couple of bad games and everyone acts like they're ready to put him into the retirement home now.
Yeah, well, yeah, Michael Penix is going to be 28 years old the first time the team gets turned over to him. All right,
Maturity.
Let's do
development.
Let's do offensive rookie of the year. I'm ready to say it's Brock Bowers. I don't care, man. I don't care. I'm one of these people. Well, if I had to vote right now, I'd have a hard time not voting for Brock Bowers. Now, you tell me why that's stupid and why it's Jayden Daniels.
Okay, let me try. First of all, this is one of these awards where this is a little bit more difficult, right? Because there's no specific value written into the award. I wrote a piece back after, I guess it was the 2020 season, saying that Justin Jefferson should have been the offensive rookie of the year and not Justin Herbert because of the fact that, again, it's not explicit in here in this net. I put together some numbers. Let me see if I can find them here, where basically, even if you look at Brock Bowers' numbers, his EPA numbers when targeted, first of all, they look bad because he has the worst number for interceptions when targeted. He has four interceptions when he's been targeted this season. But even if you exclude that stuff, he still is not, dominant even amongst rookies. Like Malik Neighbors is pretty close to having as much EPA added when targeted. He's very close to where Brock Bowers is. So it's just not like an historically great receiving season. Maybe it's an historically great rookie tight end season, but you're talking about that's a lot of ifs. That's a lot of like getting into a position that normally isn't very good as a rookie. So I don't know. I guess maybe this is a bad heuristic to have, but my heuristic is like, if Justin Jefferson can't beat Justin Herbert for the award, then there's no way that Brock Bowers should beat Jayden Daniels, who's been, at least by the numbers, and I know some people dispute this, like even better than what Justin Herbert was. I realize he had a down period there, but he was so awesome to start the year, and he has a team that's like, heavily in playoff contention right here. That was awful a year ago. So it'd be a tough sell for me.
What is the way that I can argue this using any kind of facts, logic, or data?
Well, his versus tight end numbers, I guess. He's the best at his position, you could say.
I mean,
already
basically,
as a rookie.
Basically, for me, it also comes down a little bit to future forecasting of just being like, kind of in the same way maybe it should have for the Justin Jefferson drafters versus Herbert, whereas like, again, no disrespect intended to Herbert, who is a real lightning rod these days, but like, I don't believe Justin Herbert is going to go in the annals of history as we'll remember him. They'll be like, dude, remember when the Chargers had that quarterback Herbert? He had the crazy arm, and they had that weird coach Brandon Staley, and he just happened to play at the same time as Mahomes and Josh Allen, so he never really won anything. Like, I don't know who was the third best AFC quarterback in any of the seasons where I guess Drew Brees was he always the third best quarterback, or AFC quarterback? I guess it was Ben when.
Well,
Brady,
Phillip Rivers is the guy that is the criminally underrated.
Criminally underrated. Yeah, and maybe Herbert will go down as criminally underrated. But to me, it feels, one, it both feels this way with Bowers, and he is on pace to set every rookie receiving record in terms of volume, like receptions wise stuff. I guess he won't get to Chase's he will not get to Chase's yards. But it feels like we are watching the beginning of like a legendary kind of Hall of Fame style career for Bowers. And maybe that's too much too early. But basically, I would not begrudge anyone betting actually, because he's not going to win. It's going to be Daniels or Nix. I guess the larger conversation is Jayden Daniels or Bo Nix. But I would not begrudge anyone voting for Brock Bowers.
I mean, again, it's one of those things where, I don't know. I don't understand what these things, like what the award necessarily means. So yeah, you could go any direction you want. I just think he just hasn't been that valuable as a receiver even. So are you saying that he deserves the award because he's been really, really good for a tight end? Is there blocking? Is he like doing some great blocking out there or something?
No,
I don't
that's
know.
the thing. Actually, you could make an argument that actually he's less valuable. He's less offensive rookie of the year because he's not a particularly good blocker. They've been using Michael Mayer and Harrison Bryant as the inline tight end quite a bit.
Yeah, I just think if you're looking back, okay, let's look at historical. Again, Justin Jefferson did not win. Remember, like you could argue he was almost the most valuable wide receiver, maybe non-Tyreek Hill division in the NFL, and he did not win the award. I just don't think Brock Bowers comes close to that type of season. And I know he had his island game though. He had his island game blow up for everyone to see. So that's what he has going for him. Okay, let's look at these ones. Jamar Chase for receivers here. And then the next one is
Chase
Beckham.
Win Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, Chase won. Yeah. Chase won Rookie of the Year, and then Saquon Barkley Kamara, and then the next one is Beckham. So if you look at over the last, Percy Harvin in 2009. So we're talking about like 15 years. Over the last 15 years, all you've had is Percy Harvin, receivers, guys, receivers. Percy Harvin, Beckham, and Jamar Chase. I mean, come on. Think about those rookie seasons. Those are like incredible seasons. Bowers has had a great season. Is great. Congratulations. All the other tight ends have fallen off a cliff, and they've hit,
I mean, Bowers is going to catch 107 passes and 1,100-ish yards and 6 touchdowns.
That's like a good, not great wide receiver season.
He plays tight end, man.
I know. Well, then where else is he bringing the juice? What else is he doing to bring the juice?
Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm actually being convinced by this argument, because the whole thing about playing tight end, quote unquote, is that, and the reason why playing tight end is so hard is that your duties are multiple. You need to be like Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski. Great.
Actually, I missed Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was also in there for Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2022. So yeah, I mean that's a year with no quarterbacks that were any good.
I was gonna say that had to have been a quarterbackless year, because Garrett Wilson had a good rookie season, but not a great rookie season.
So, like, I don't know. We don't have a lot of precedent. We basically do not have a lot of precedent for a really good quarterback season
with a really good
receiver winning this, unless they're just fucking crazy how good they were, as far as their playing time, how well they played. I mean, 2014, I don't think there was any quarterbacks really in that year either. 2021, no, that was not great also. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a done deal that it should be Jayden Daniels, but well, we'll see.
No consideration to Sean Payton's boy, Bo Nix, none.
No, sorry. It's not really close.
I also don't think it is particularly close. I do find it. I don't know, man. I wonder if Maye had started the whole year if he'd have been in here, because Daniels' numbers have really not declined, but he just has been running less since he injured the
foot. No. He had a bad 3 or 4 week stretch relative to being so incredibly awesome. But if you look at the totality of the season, he's still like almost top 5 in efficiency, and he's not quite top 5 in grading, but he's in the top 10 in grading, whereas Nix is not even close. Yeah, there were some takes. I don't think anyone bought there's 2 different categories. There's like fan loyalists started to really jump on Bo Nix because of the wins. And then your Maye take, I think it was Orlovsky or someone a couple of weeks ago said, who are the best rookie quarterbacks? And he's like, oh, I really wanted to make Drake Maye number 1. I was like, give me a fucking break. You can't put Drake Maye number 1 over Jayden Daniels because one guy had a bad stretch and the other guy was halfway decent during that stretch. Come on, people. Like, I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible in the future. Don't get me wrong. But it seems weird to me to just wipe our memory slate clean of what happened the first 8-9 weeks of the season when Daniels was crushing.
Man, I am such a Drake Maye guy. I know he's not going to I know he's not.
Well, it's a confirmation bias thing too, because my unscientific reading is that when we had these off-season podcasts of different people saying, if I were going to pick NFL quarterbacks with their current contract for the next 3 years, Jayden Daniels was the guy that just got like left off of lists. They would say when they're going back and forth and picking, it would be like, okay, well, I pick, one guy would say, I pick Caleb Williams, and the next pick would be like, okay, I take Drake Maye. Like they were just skipping over Jayden Daniels. So I don't think he was particularly liked amongst analysts in a weird way.
I had Daniels. I had Maye over Daniels in like my pre-draft.
Well, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. If you're gonna
in my takes model,
he's a younger guy. He's got all that sort of stuff going. Why not? Well, like, what are we doing here if we're not gonna use a couple of metrics to boost the number 3 pick over the number 2 pick, right?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. All right, last thing let's do, because we have not even recommended a bet yet to the people. You know what? I will recommend a bet to the people. If I was going to place one wager in the market right now, it would be on Lamar, and to basically see Lamar just closes out the year going nuts. He just has like one mega explosion, 5 touchdown game, gets the Steelers bogey off his back. They win out. They get maybe with the Chiefs playing as shitty as they are, maybe they even get the 2 seed. And basically Josh, it kind of is like a defense and running style and to the season. Obviously, I think Josh is very likely to win. I don't think Josh should be minus 225 favorite though.
Yeah,
I think
those always end up. You never want to bet on whoever the favorite is in like this sort of time frame. I feel like you never get any value. You know, I'll agree with you with Lamar, but I think I don't really have a take on offensive rookie of the year. But for coach, I got a coach take.
Coach of the year. Yes,
I got a coach of the year take. Looking at DraftKings here, they may be better something else here. So we have Dan Campbell is first at plus 120. Mike Tomlin plus 400. Kevin O'Connell 400. Sean Payton plus 550, Jim Harbaugh 550, Dan Quinn 1200, Sean McDermott 1400, Matt LaFleur 1600, and then Andy Reid 22. But I think we're kind of cutting off the credibility. What about Sean McDermott at 1400? Because you have the Bills right now. They're scheduled for the remainder of the season at the Rams, at Detroit. Now this is key because Dan Campbell's the number one guy in this rating, right? So if you're going to take the underdog, if they win that, not only does that give you the boost as betting on McDermott, but it hurts Dan Campbell, everyone's favorite guy to win the award. If they can win in Detroit this one particular game, and then the rest of their schedule is pretty easy. They have to play the Patriots, the Jets, and then the Patriots again. So there's a scenario you're working into here where at the very worst, you're locked into the second seed in the AFC. And maybe some people will forget about Andy Reid because of what's going on there. You beat Detroit and Dan Campbell. Maybe the Eagles, who are surging and have this super easy schedule, kind of get close to catch or pass the Lions in the NFC. All these different things can kind of come together where you have McDermott sitting down there at a pretty low number based upon the fact that this is a really hot team in the NFL right now and could just win out for the rest of the season if they beat Detroit. And so you get that extra boost from there.
Right. So my question is, I actually really like that angle. That was some good research. The question I would have for you would be, how often does the NFL MVP and the coach of the year come from the same team? Because my guess would be almost never. My guess would be that the voters effectively ascribe the success to either the quarterback or to the coach. Very rarely do they do it for both. I mean, I'm sure maybe Belichick and Brady each did it together. Maybe
it's possible. But so normally, like, coach of the year is overperform expectations award of the year, right?
Exactly.
So that isn't going to happen normally if you have a really good quarterback, right? Like, I think there was an argument going into this season that like Josh Allen may take a step back this year. I think I made that argument. And honestly, you know, like his again, this is not his best year. This is not his best year statistically by the numbers. So, but I do think people were kind of down-ish on the Bills. This was a retooling, quote unquote, retooling year for them. So I don't know how often we get a retooling year included with an MVP year. Maybe you could say we got that for the Chiefs last year. So that's a possibility, but I don't know. I feel like a decent amount was expected of the Detroit Lions this season. So I know
they were the NFC Conference Championship last year.
I know. That's what I'm saying. A lot was expected of them. So in some ways, the Bills are probably outperforming them vis-a-vis preseason expectation. I mean, maybe Mike Tomlin could sneak in with something, but again, I think there's a little bit of a house of cards aspect of the Steelers franchise, but I don't think he's ever won coach of the year. So he'd be another guy where a doofer factor if you wanted to give it to him there.
Yeah. I like,
but his odds were too good. His odds were too, he was too up there. He was second in odds. So I was like, it's not going to,
I actually feel like the McDermott one is good. The Campbell at plus 120, it feels, has he won it before? Did he win it last year?
No, I don't think so. Cause that was the one where everyone was betting on him and then he didn't win it. Right.
I kind of feel like it's his award. I kind of feel like he should be priced like Josh. Like if because there is no Lion who's eligible for any of these awards. A Lion is not going to win.
Okay, John Harbaugh was coach of the year in 2019 with Lamar Jackson. So again, it was like an unexpected thing, right?
Thing.
It was an unexpected thing that he came out of nowhere and won. Matt Nagy in 2018. I just like looking at some of these.
Yeah, that's the thing is Coach of the Year is this like hilarious award that is so I guess it's very descriptive. It is not predictive in any way, shape or form. But yeah,
I mean, Bill Belichick in 2010. Okay, so you got that. That's another dual one, right?
there are probably some hardos who voted
Belichick in
Belichick every
2007, like you had to give them every award. So no, I think it matches up. I think it's a possibility. It's just harder. It's just harder to happen because you're not going to get that. You're not going to have an MVP caliber quarterback and overperform expectations. And I think they can do that this season for the Bills.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of supposed to be a rebuilding year. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I will place that wager because it'll ease the pain a little bit as the Buffalo Bills find their way
Because the
to
guys
the one
with
seed.
longer odds, LaFleur, I mean, I guess there's always some possibility. LaFleur, I don't know. I just feel like they're kind of they might have some issues also. I'm not quite sure. Let's see, what's Green Bay's schedule look like? They got at Detroit, at Seattle, at Minnesota.
Oh man, they win at Detroit. We're cooking with gas. They win on oh wow, this Thursday, man. They win that game. We're cooking.
That's true. It's a possibility. I mean, he definitely has some narrative to him because of the whole the Malik Willis.
The Malik Willis.
If you could get 3 good games out of Malik Willis, you're incredible. So yeah.
And he sure did. All right, there we go. We got an hour in. Kevin, tell the people unexpected points, what they can find and what they can get with their when they give you their email.
Sure. Yeah. Unexpectedpoints.com, Substack, come out with, I don't know, a handful of posts every single week. The main thing is the game reviews. So it goes over what I have my adjusted scores, where it tries to look at like fundamentals based scores, which
people love that.
People love that.
It's their
Steelers
favorite.
Steelers fans loved when I sent that out that they had some games where they're maybe slightly lucky to win in the past. So you have all of that information on it. I also track all this stuff on a Google spreadsheet, including all my different proprietary metrics for quarterback efficiency and this and that people have access to with the subscription. So, go and check it out.
All right, everyone, check out Unexpected Points. Please, if you are listening to this on the podcast, consider subscribing on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube, thank you very much. We appreciate you, and I'll be back next week.